hello everyone. Good afternoon. Is everyone doing all right? You look healthy. Good, good. And you know what? I'm going to just say that we're going to get to know each other. I'm going to be here 2 more times. So I already heard that someone doesn't want to look up and have a crick in their neck. So you're fine. But if you're way back there, you do what you want. But I'm just saying, the best seat in the house, right up here. How's everyone doing? I'm so happy to be with you today. We're a small crowd, but despise not the days of small beginnings, right? You will forgive my voice. I have a much more pleasant sound and tone to my voice than I have today. I have been speaking for the last month and a half straight, and was in Boston on last week, and I think I overdid it. But nonetheless, you can hear me okay? Good. So you'll forgive me if occasionally I have to clear my throat and things like that. I hope not to disrupt too much. So anyway, thank you for that introduction. I want to thank you all for having me here. And I know that we're going to have a wonderful time learning together. Is that all right? Fantastic. Now, I like to tell stories. You like stories? I know about 2 really good stories. 2 really good ones. I'm going to tell you one of them. Next week, I'll tell the second one. But I'm going to tell you the first one I really like. Is that all right? Here we go. Now, there were 2 doctors. How many doctors? You know that because I said it, and you can see it up there, can't you? So there were 2 doctors. One of them was older. The other was young. And the older doctor had served his community for many years, and he had really used just the most basic, simple methods. I mean, old school. He would even, share certain home remedies on the side. He would let people know that, you can take charge of your own health. And he really wasn't in it for the money. He really wanted to do people well, right? But he was getting up in years, and he decided that, it's time for me to go ahead and retire. And this new young doctor who was fresh out of medical school, out of his program, he came there. He was going to set up shop, and he was going to make a lot of money. They were complete opposites. You understand? Well, this didn't sit well with the older doctor, so he said, well, maybe I should stick around just a little longer just to make sure people get the kind of quality care that I've been given for years. So he decided, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer $500. Pay me $500, and I will fix anything that ails you. Come in with whatever issue you have, and I'll take care of it. That's what he advertised. But if I can't fix it, I'll give you $500. Well, this young doctor, he saw that. He was livid. He says, how could this guy? He has been around. He's got this advantage. He's got all these patients. And now he's offering this bogus claim that he can cure whatever. He says, I'm going to expose him for the charlatan that he is. So he goes into the doctor's office, and he comes in, and he says, Doc, I hear you can cure anything for $500. He said, that's right. He says, well, I have a problem. He said, what's your problem? He said, I can't taste anything. I've lost a taste in my mouth. I can't taste anything. Had breakfast this morning. I couldn't taste anything. He said, you can't taste anything? No, I can't taste anything. Wise old doctor thought to himself for a second. Looked over to his nurse. He says, nurse, reach up there on that shelf and grab me that jug that says 22XX. She grabbed it. She brought it over to him. Poured him a little bit. Said, try that. Put it in his mouth. Spit it out. He said, that's gasoline. He said, I just cured your taste bud problem. That'd be $500. Now, this only just irritated, and it just made this young doctor so hot. He said, I'm going to get him. I will not be outdone. He comes back the next day, and he says, all right, doc, I got another problem. He said, what's your problem? He says, I lost my memory. Can't remember anything. You can't remember anything. He says, I can't remember anything. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast this morning. You can't remember anything? Can't remember. Wise old doctor thought for a second. He says, nurse, do me a favor. reach up there and grab me that jug, 22XX. He says, wait a minute, you gave me that yesterday. And he said, cured your memory problem. That'll be $500. Oh, he stormed out of there. He was so hot. He was upset. He came back and he says, I'm going to get this guy. It's the last thing I do. So he comes in with the biggest ploy of all. He comes in and he can't see. He's knocking things over. He's trying to get around, and he's got some shades on. And he says, Doc, where are you? Doc says, oh, we're right over here. He says, I got a bigger problem that you ever seen. He says, don't tell me you're blind. He says, I'm blind. I can't see a thing. He says, you can't see anything. He says, I can't see a thing. He says, well, this is a big problem. I got to tell you, you got me on this one. Nobody has ever cured blindness since Jesus. And I don't know anyone since. So I guess you got me on this one. I said, nurse, grab me those fresh $100 bills over there and give him his money. Comes over, nurse, starts paying the man. 1, 2, 3. Looks down, this is $10 bills. He says, wait a minute, he said, I just cured your blindness. That'll be $500. What is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is never ever discount, diminish, or count out the wisdom of the ages. There's wisdom in the ages. Oh, I'm glad to see you here, sister. You've got wisdom. You've got wisdom, brother. Sister, you've got wisdom. And today I want to share with you all some wisdom from the ages. And before I do that, though, I'd like to show you just a very quick video. In my presentations, I like to use mixed media, if you will. So I have a quick video because we have a little problem here. We need to help out the children. There's a huge problem in our world, and the children need our help. And, well, I'll just show you the video.
Every year, thousands of children are forced to eat vegetables.
This is a problem.
Think of the children.
Joseph, do you want a cookie? You have to eat your veggies first.
Save the children from vegetables and everything else.
It is?
All you have to do is eat your noodle from your mac and cheese. Swallow it. It's in your mouth. Just swallow it. Eat the noodle!
What? I don't want to eat a vegetable every day.
1, 2, 3.
We really need to give them our help. Friends, when did this happen? How did this happen? When did we start to hate vegetables? Can anyone help us out? I tell you, we can solve the world's problems if we just begin to answer this one question. You know, I thought that I was the best dad in the world. Let me tell you, I've got 3 kids. They're all grown now. The last of them is 19, 2 of them in college. And, you know, the way that goes. But I thought I was the best dad in the world. My sons, they hear me out. My sons would say to me, Dad, can we have some more broccoli? When they were little. Can you have some more broccoli? Of course you can. I would walk away. I would stick my chest out and I'd say, wow, I'm father of the year. My kids love vegetables. And then I put them in school. And one day, somebody gave them some Pringles potato chips. No more broccoli. They never liked broccoli again. In fact, my son said something very similar to what someone said there. I had put out a nice plate. It was not even vegetables, it was fruit. And he said, why do we have to eat so much fruit every day? And I wondered, how does this happen? I'm going to share with you several presentations over the next few weeks. Today's presentation is the origin of the plant-based diet. The next one is going to be regarding our need for the seed or seeds. And then you're going to love the third one. That's going to be in October. And that one is called Collards and Kale, a love story. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be amazing. But there in that presentation, you'll find out things along the way, good scientific information, evidence that shows that if we just ate the recommended guidelines, the recommended amount of vegetables, fruits and vegetables, that 100,000 lives per year would be saved. I'm baffled. I'm confused. I'm perplexed. Why is it that we spend 50% more than other countries, namely Sweden, France, to name just a few? We spend 50% more, yet we have worse outcomes than they do. And believe it or not, we're not in the top 10 as far as our health in this country, not in the top 20, not in the top 30, not in the top 40. We are somewhere around 47 with civilized, industrialized nations. We're just a few ticks up from Cuba. How did this happen? Most people look for their health in a pill, in a bottle, or something like that. Now, how many of you had a wonderful lunch today? Did you have lunch just now? Oh, good. I'm so glad you had lunch. Now, I know something about human physiology. What's taking place right now is you're digesting that wonderful lunch you had. That salad? Good, good. Yes. Lentils or something like that, maybe some rice. Yeah? Good starch. Well, here's what I know. The blood from your brains are traveling down to your stomachs to help to digest food. And it never fails, but your head always tries to follow the blood. So you're going to get sleepy. So I might ask you a few questions just to start, because I know that whenever that blood starts to move to the stomach and you start to go into that nod, if I ask you a question, the blood comes back up to your head. We'll put it to use. Now, I want to start out by sharing with you recent diets. This is the origin of the plant-based diet. Now, I'm not here to beat anybody over the head with, you need to be on a plant-based diet. You need to be a vegan. That is not what I do. As a health revivalist and health evangelist, I let people know that it is your choice. You're smart people. You're smart people. You know what's best for you. Now, I'm going to share good information, good science, and the smart people that you are, you'll say, well, that makes sense for me. That sounds good. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the rule that I have. I won't play the plate police, right? A man persuaded against his will is what? So you're not helping me out by bringing that blood back up. That was one of the moments that I had to do that. A man persuaded against his will he's of the same opinion still. So I'm not going to try to persuade you. I'm going to share the information, and you'll make good choices based on that, because you're smart people. All right? Sounds good? So here's how it's going to lay out. I'm going to show recent diets. Then I'm going to move into the actual origin of all diets. And then I'm going to show you some smart history of that origin. And then I'm going to try my best to give you the purpose of why we were given that diet. Sounds good? Let me give it to you again. I'm going to start out with just some of the recent diets. And they're all over the place. You know that. I'm going to start out with the recent diets, and then I'm going to move along, and then I'm going to show you the original diet, because some of these that I'm about to show you, they claim to be the original. But we want to see if that is truth or not. And then after showing you the origin of the diet, I'm then going to show you some history with some good science that just will blow you away. And after I give you that, we're going to go into the purpose, and then we'll conclude. And we will say that, wow, wasn't it good to have talked about diet in this meeting? Does that sound good to you? Does that sound good? All right. All right, so here's some notable diets in recent history. 2018, the keto diet was the #1 searched diet on Google. #1, keto. Ketogenic diet. Anybody know what that is? Here's another moment that I'm asking you a question to get that blood back up to your head. Ketogenic diet, also known as the keto diet, it's the diet where you have low carbs, but you basically subsist on high fat. It's a high fat diet. In other words, it is of the belief that if you want to lose weight, and you will, you should have fat as your primary source of fuel in your body. Does that sound like a good idea to anybody? Most people are avoiding fat. Now, it will help you lose weight, but it will cause much damage in the process. But that was the number one search. And then look at some of these books that came out. The Keto Cookbook. Wow. You know, I'm always fascinated by some of the titles and some of the taglines and descriptions of these books, right? Look at the one in the middle, the Ketogenic Diet, the ultimate bacon and butter. Does that attract you? Come get your bacon and stack it up on your plate, right? Ketogenic Diet, there you see on your right, the step-by-step guide. See, you need a guide for this diet. You need step-by-step instructions. You don't want to eat too much butter. You don't want to eat too much fat. You don't want to eat too much bacon. So therefore, you need a step-by-step guide, right? So that's the number one searched one in 2018. 2013, the number one search on Google was, I don't know what that was, but you're okay here. The monitor is going out, but that's okay. I can just turn this way. The number one search diet was the Paleo Diet. Now, you know that's based on the Paleolithic Period. That's a long period of time. You understand? Anybody ever researched the Paleolithic Period? I mean, we're talking about 2 million years ago to 200,000 is the upper, and then the middle part of that Paleolithic Period is somewhere between 150,000 years ago and 40,000 years ago, and then the lower end is somewhere around 40,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago. And basically, it is characterized by the period of time when we actually were using stones as tools and as weapons. So therefore, as one who would go out and get your paleo diet, you would take a spear or arrows that somehow had as its point, as its penetrating point of the arrow or spear as a stone, and then that's how you would get your meal. So that's the paleo diet, and this diet consists mainly of anything that a hunter-gatherer would get, basically, right? So they say lean meats, but I wondered about that. I'm like, lean? If you were out shooting something and you had to feed the whole family with a boar, you probably ate all of it, right? That's what I'm thinking. Nonetheless, that's what they say. They say lean meats, fruits, any type of foliage that they could find, that was your paleo diet. That was 2013. Look at some of the books out there. The Paleo Answer, right? 7 days to lose weight, feel great, and stay young. Now, look at the one there, the second one. It combines keto and paleo. If you want both, lose weight, burn fat, and live a healthier lifestyle. 2 books in one, says Andrew King. How about this one, the Paleo Diet for Athletes? All right, here's one for athletes. The ancient, they know how to sell you, and that's a good marketing word, isn't it? The ancient nutritional formula for peak athletic performance, it says there. How about this? The Paleo Solution. And notice what it says there. It says the original human diet. Now, that's a claim, isn't it? I said, now, how do they know that? How do they know that that's the original human diet? Right? But they say they know. Nonetheless, now this one will get you. The Paleo Chic Diet for rapid results. Why? Because cave women don't get fat. Talk about how do they know information? How do they know that? Have they found some bones from 2 million years ago, 150,000 years ago, and they said, wow, this could not be the bones of an overweight person? They had no obesity because cave women don't get fat. Boy, I tell you, they'll try to sell you any way they can, won't they? 2007, we had lots of books coming out on the market talking about calories, good calories, bad calories. Why we get fat, this guy had an explanation as to why. Then you had over here, the diet delusion, where you pile on the carbs. It was a period where you just eat carbs, stuff yourself with carbs, donuts and everything. Oh, people were in heaven. It was bliss until we had an obesity epidemic, which we have at this time, right? But that's what happened there. Then 2003 South Beach diet. Eat this diet and you'll look like people in Florida who are out on the beach. Huh? Does that sound attractive to you? Now, the Paleo Diet, that wasn't the first time it came out, 2002. There was also a book by the same name that was pushing the same diet in 2002. You've all heard about Atkins, Dr. Atkins. He had a diet, the new diet revolution, right? The low-carb approach that has helped millions lose weight and keep it off. Only problem is, many people ended up with kidney stones, kidney disease, and overtaxing their kidneys in general by having too much protein, right? 1978, it keeps going back to Scarsdale diet, right? Whatever. Now this one really got me here. 1975. See, the Paleo Diet wasn't even new. It just got a more attractive name. This one was not very creative. They just called it the Stone Age Diet, right? Dr. Atkins was around in 1972. This is probably the origin of the low-carb craze, right? 1964, that was a powerful year. That was the year I was born. And it was a year that someone came out with a book called The Drinking Man's Diet. Oh, I wish I were making this up, friends. The Drinking Man's Diet. It was a book. It only cost $1. Notice the tagline, though. How to lose weight with a minimum of willpower. Well, I guess, if you are someone who's drinking all the time and you have no willpower anyway, why not go with the diet that actually you can incorporate some drinking with, right? So that's a little journey, a little trip down the path of how we are so just overwhelmed with a steady barrage of diets. And I want to just say to you that those who claim that they have the original diet, the original human diet, is just more confusion. But I wanted to know, well, what is the original diet? And where can I find it? Where is that? So I want us to look at, for the next few minutes, at the original diet. Now, you find that the original diet in Genesis, the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 29. And in that diet, in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 29, you had, help me out here, what was a part of that diet? Does anybody here know? Can anyone help me out with that? This is another moment. It was what? Fruit. Got that one. What else? Nuts. Thank you. What else? Grains. Absolutely. What else? Seeds. Don't forget the seeds. We'll be talking about that next week. Anything else? Vegetables, right? And vegetables. Thank you. I was just doing that to trick you. No, vegetables did not come as the original diet. And that's why, listen to what I'm saying to you. That's why in October you must come back and hear and tell somebody about my presentation, Collards and Kale, a love story. Because they came after the original diet. So you want to come back for that. So it was in Genesis 1:29 that we got that original diet, which consisted of fruits, nuts, grains, and seeds. Fruits, nuts, grains, and seeds. Fruits, nuts, grains, seeds. No vegetables. Vegetables came 2 chapters later in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 18. That's when they came. Now, I want you to start thinking now. Why weren't they a part of the original when they're so good for us now? We know that all of the scientific evidence shows that vegetables, a Harvard University study looked at all of the things that we can eat, and they said of all the things associated with reduction of lifestyle diseases, greens pack the greatest punch. Now, that's just a preview only because we're going to talk about it in depth. But I want you to start thinking about it. Why weren't they a part of the original diet, according to the Genesis account? Genesis meaning the beginning. Now, so that is probably the most popular, the most noted. And while many of the scientific literature does not like to, will not agree with that might be the original diet, I believe that it is. It's not confusing, it's very clear, and guess what? Without looking at a ketogenic or a paleo diet or any of these other low-carb type of crazed diets, what we know from that diet is what science is saying is the very best thing for us today. We know that without a doubt. And I'm going to show you some of that. But when I talk about the purpose, I want us to think about why was this given? What was the purpose behind it? Or was it just random? Was it arbitrary? I don't think so. But we'll go into that. Now, going further. Now, some things I'm going to show you with the origin and some of the history, by the way. You're going to think it's fiction. I don't blame you. And that's your right. But I want you to know, as I just mentioned, what I'm sharing with you, which sounds like fiction, but is fiction something feigned, invented, or imagined, a made-up story? And you know what? I'm happy if you still walk away and say, well, a lot of that stuff is just, it might be imaginary. It's good folklore, good storytelling. It's okay. But you can't dismiss the evidence that it correlates with. All right? So, just so you know, I'll just show you some things in the history. And the first thing I want to show you is, first thing is going to be Daniel. Anybody know who Daniel is? Daniel in the lion's den, right? That's not the only thing about Daniel, though. He was one of my favorite books in the Bible, actually. I got to tell you, although I talk about health, I combine some of these beautiful lessons that are found in the scriptures. I'm just fascinated by them. So whenever I share health, I also share a good helping and I'll put it in dining terms. A good serving. A good serving, pardon the pun, of the gospel. Now, you'll have lots of people that will share it in many different ways. But this is the way that really attracts me. It not only attracts me, but it motivates me. And as I find, as not only as a health evangelist and a health revivalist, but also as a motivational speaker, I find that this is the thing that motivates people to actually make lasting change. Okay? And let me put that further into perspective for you. If these things are true, then I'm having a difficult time attributing them to something that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. Follow me now. We call that evolution. If that's your theory, I mean you no harm. But if that's what has happened, if what I'm going to show you has evolved, listen to me very carefully. If the love that I'm going to show you in food, pause. I always like to say to people, I said this to one young lady the other day, I said, you may not love collard greens. You may not love Brussels sprouts. You may not love kale. Kale loves you. You get that? What am I saying by that? I'm going to show you evidence that the foods that we eat, when you consume them, they function in the body as if set on a path of love that is unquenchable, that's unstoppable, that keeps you alive and keeps you healthy when you work in connection or concert or tandem with it. So this is what is striking to me. Above, the science is good, I like it. But the thing that I look for is, boy, that's love. And if that took millions of years to evolve, then why aren't we just as loving people? Follow me? That's the question I have. So let's take a look. So the first thing will be Daniel. Second thing will be pre and post flood death. That's going to be really, you're going to really say, wait a minute, man, that just sounds too good to be true. And then we'll finish off with going back in the same way that we started 2018 and we worked our way back to 1964, the year of my birth, right? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with Daniel, then I'm going to go and we're going to look at the pre and post flood, if you will, and then we're going to end up back at Genesis. And then we're going to use Genesis to color the whole experience that we're talking about. Is that all right? Okay? Okay, let's look at Daniel. Daniel was around about 600 BC, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with the story, but for those who might not know, I'm just going to kind of lay it out there. Daniel had 2 fasts. How many fasts did he have? He had 2. One was in the very first chapter of the book of Daniel, and it was in that chapter that something amazing happened. It was told to Daniel, who had been taken from his homeland as a boy. He was brought all the way from Jerusalem to the land called Babylon. And there, as a teenager, along with a few of his friends, they were smart, they were skilled, and they were made to be slaves within the palace. And therefore, the king, whose name was Nebuchadnezzar, he wanted to make sure that the ones who were serving in his palace ate the foods that he served. So, when that was brought to Daniel and his friends, they laid out this table. Now, I don't know what was on that table, but all I know was that Daniel said, no, thank you. There might have been some pork on that table. There might have been some shrimp. There might have been some other type of beast foods, food from a meat source. And Daniel said, no, thank you. And the attendant to the king said, wait a minute, Daniel, you can't refuse, because if you refuse, the king will have my head. Whatever he tells me to do, I must do, and you must do it too. Daniel says, I tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. Give me 10 days. How many days? 10 days. Give me 10 days and allow me and my friends to just eat lentils. In other words, let us just eat seeds. Let us have lentils, and in the scriptures, it's referred to as pulse. He says, let us have that for 10 days and then examine us after 10 days. So he says, okay, I give you those 10 days, but if you're not in good shape, I'm telling you, we got to change this whole thing. And get 10 days. Daniel and his Hebrew friends, they actually eat pulse and just drink water for 10 days. And then they're examined just like was promised. And guess what happened? They were wiser intellectually. They were stronger physically. They were actually more mentally on point than everybody else. And they understood the things, all the learning and the language of the Chaldeans. This was amazing. Now, why am I telling you all this? I wanted you to be clear about Daniel and his first fast. That was a 10-day fast. Then there was a 21-day fast later in the story of Daniel. And he says, I ate no pleasant food. Now, I believe that Daniel probably had a plant-based diet. I believe that. That's why he says, I know if I eat this way, I'm going to be better off than those other guys. So later on, when he says, for 21 days, he was trying to understand something. So he said, I'm going to go 21 days without eating any pleasant food. So therefore, he probably just had just raw food, raw fruit, raw nuts, right? So guess what? Several researchers wanted to know if they actually did this test for 21 days, just like in the scriptures, what would happen? So they did it. The effect of a 21 Daniel fast, 21-day Daniel fast on metabolic and cardiovascular disease risk factors in both men and women. And here's what they found. Now, here's what it was. They understood that the Daniel fast is based on the biblical book of Daniel, commonly partaken for 21 days, and involves food intake in accordance with a stringent, what kind of diet? A vegan diet, right? The purpose of the present study was to determine the effect of a 21-day Daniel fast on biomarkers of antioxidants. That's what you'll find in your fruits, right? Your nuts will have those. Those are bioactives that actually love you. Because when you consume them, they actually heal the body. They actually help to strengthen the body. They actually extend your life. Do you hear some love in that, or was that evolved? Are you following me? Now, again, it involved 21 days devoid of all what kind of products? And preservatives, so no processed foods. And we know that processed foods are really bad, right? Processed foods, things that sit on the shelf, sits in a can, sits in a bag, right? High in sodium, things like that. I always tell people, the longer the shelf life, the shorter yours. Follow that, right? So we want to make sure that we're eating living foods, foods that have bioactives, antioxidants, and things like that, that when we consume them, they actually bring life into us. But my position is they also bring love with them. You following me? Okay. Now, so it was devoid of, have I told anybody what to eat yet? Have I? Have I offended anybody by saying what you must do? I told you I wouldn't, so you're going to be disappointed if you came and thought, he's just going to tell us to stop eating chicken. I won't tell you. I'm keeping my word. I said I'm just going to share with you information, and you'll make a decision, right? Now, you won't stop me if I start to actually tell you what to do. Say, wait. You said you weren't going to do that, right? Sometimes I might slip a little bit, but I'm not going to do that. So you all let me know. So no animal products, no preservatives, things high in sodium and lots of preservatives and things like that. I don't even buy, when I buy bread, I don't buy bread that sits on a shelf unless it's in the refrigerator section. Why is it in that refrigerator? Why? Because it doesn't have the preservatives in it. So therefore, it still has living food in it. In other words, it has life and love in it. And oh, my friends, don't. No, see, I almost slipped. See there? I almost slipped. Sometimes I almost slip. No, I'm not responsible for anybody. I don't want that kind of pressure on my life. I got too much pressure already. But here, I'll tell you in a way that I tell you, okay? I'll use my methods. This is my method. Okay. Wonder bread. Wonder why they call it bread. Wonder bread. The whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. That's how I'll tell you. Is that all right? Is that okay? The whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. That's all you got to remember. The whiter the bread, the sooner you got it. Okay. Now, it said this particular one was devoid of all what? Products, animal products and preservatives, and inclusive of what? Say it with me, please. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds. Now, where did you hear about that? The original diet. So again, we go back to the origin of the plant-based diet, and now science, through this particular study, has determined that this Daniel fast is worthy of looking into. Now, let's see what they found. Okay, what did they find out? Conclusion. A 21-day period of modified dietary intake in accordance with the Daniel fast is, number one, well tolerated by both who? Men and women. Look at that. You both can benefit. Husband and wives, you can benefit from this together, right? Number two, it improves several risk factors for metabolic and cardiovascular disease, meaning you won't have a heart attack. You won't have a stroke when you have this. God bless you. You will be healthier on this diet and will have very few of the risk factors that the general population has. Now, I heard you all. I wasn't eavesdropping on your conversation. I promise you I wasn't. But certain words, buzzwords, jump out at me, and I heard blue zone. Somebody over here was talking about blue zone. Was that you, Galen? Who was it? Nobody wants to take responsibility. That's fine. It's not like it's a bad word. It's not like it's a bad deal. It's actually a good thing. The blue zone. Who knows? I want to make sure they will. You did say it. He confesses finally. Isn't it good for your soul, Galen? Now, listen. Here's what I want us to understand. I want to make sure we're on the same page, on one accord, like a Honda. So therefore, if you understand the blue zones, then we're all on the same page. Now, so that's what I'm asking you, just checking in with you. How many blue zones are there? That's very ambitious. It's ambitious. How many? You're close to, Galen. Oh, now you're going up. Oh, no, 5. So to the young lady right here, 5. 5 is the number. There are 5 blue zones. 5 blue zones in the world. Now, the examination gets a little tougher now because I'm going to ask you, where are they? Now, I heard at least one. Okinawa, Japan. And Okinawa, Japan has the longest living. And by the way, blue zones, for those who might not be tracking this, blue zones are areas in the world where people live longer than the general population, right? They're living to be 100 years old or more. We call those centenarians, right? 100 years of age or more, right? These people, listen to me. They are amazing. They're not in a, just so that, you think 100, you're thinking they're in a assisted living facility, right? That's what you're thinking. In a wheelchair. They're walking around. They're exercising. There was this amazing story by the man who actually, he didn't coin the phrase blue zone, but he certainly did make it popular. His name is Dan Buettner. He wrote the book Blue Zones, and he's going around the world, especially in these United States, setting up areas in our country where in the city, that's probably why we are having more of these bicycles and things that kind of nudge us to be more active. That's what he's doing around in various cities. He comes and says, give me $2 million now, turn your city into a blue zone. Anyway, Dan Buettner, as he was discovering this, he went out to, I can't tell you because that'll be one of the blue zones. He went out to a place out west. He went out there and he took a drive with a woman who was 107. Yes, she still had her driver's license. Her name was Marge Jeton. She's dead now, but she lived to 107 years old. And let me tell you, he said the most harrowing experience of his life was driving down the 10th freeway with Marge Jeton. 107 years old, still had a driver's license, still volunteering, still exercising and working out. And I'm telling you, these people are not in wheelchairs. They do their own shopping. They do everything. And from what I hear, many of them still dating successfully. Listen, it's not too much information. This is what everyone longs to have while they are living. You want to have a good quality of life. Please, someone raise your hand if you disagree with me. Nonetheless, I digress. Let me get back to the blue zones. Now, there are 5. You've named one. And Okinawa, Japan has the longest living what? Women. Women. Longest living women. And what is the next one? You can't jump there. We're moving from this way. We're going east. We went west on me. What's the next one? I'll help you out. Sardinia, Italy. Don't forget that. They have the longest living men who live up in the highlands, right? Longest living men there, right? Then you have Ikaria, Greece, still over there in Europe. And then you have, moving west, Loma Linda, California, which has it has the largest population of centenarians, people living over 100 years of age, yeah? And then you have Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, right? So there you have 5 areas in the world where people are living on. So now, why did I go through that whole exercise? I did it because what they wanted to do, they wanted to look at what are the commonalities in these 5 groups. You know how you do that. And you look at it and you say, plant-based diet. They primarily eat the original diet, fruits, nuts, grains, and seeds. They primarily live and have the same diet that we see here with Daniel, that the Mayo Clinic and others have looked at and said, wow, there is something to this. Yep. This is what they also concluded. Modification of dietary intake in accordance with the Daniel fast, that means having more of a plant-based diet, is associated with, and And I apologize for how that looks. That's not how it looks on my slide. Just okay. So don't go away and say the slides look terrible. It's the lumens and the projector. Okay, are we good? I don't want it to get back to me that people were saying my slides were ready. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So what it says there is Daniel fast is associated with an improvement in selected what? Biomarkers of antioxidant status and oxidative stress, including metabolites of nitric oxide, which is good for your cardiovascular health. Stimulates those blood vessels in your arteries, yeah? So that they remain elastic. Conclusions? Meaningful improvements in what? Blood pressure, blood lipids, and biomarkers of oxidative stress. Moreover, even the insulin C-reactive protein were all lowered to a clinically meaningful extent. That's the science. Now, agreeing with the scriptures. Do you see that? Moreover, the study extends the findings of other plant-based diets by documenting the impact of a strict vegan diet on multiple measures of oxidative stress and antioxidant capacity. So, that's Daniel for you. Now, let's move on. Let's look at the flood, before and after. Now, this will blow you away. Again, I'm going to give you this disclaimer. You may feel that this is somewhat parabolic. You may think it is folklore. You may think it is imaginary. That is your business. That's your prerogative. But I'm letting you know that if JAMA ever gets a hold of this, this would be the most powerful longevity study ever known to man. Why? Because it traces 10 generations before the flood. Now, the first thing you notice is you say, wait a minute, Adam, I'm not even sure I believe in Adam. Well, let me just tell you, according to the Genesis record, Adam lived 930 years, but he was just a young boy compared to this guy, Methuselah. And when you look at all of them, the average lifespan was 912 years. Now, again, take that as you wish. Discard it as you wish. I always say, use the watermelon principle when you're listening to me. You know what the watermelon principle is? Eat that which is good and spit out the seeds. Now, that's your prerogative, but I recommend as you come next week, I'm going to tell you don't spit out those seeds because they're good and there's medicine in those seeds. But here, if you dismiss that, here's what you cannot deny. Are you ready for this? Now, 10 generations before the flood. How many years is that? Does anyone know? How many years is a generation? Well, number one, in the scriptures, a generation is 40 years. 40 years. So 10 times 40, how many years is that? So for 400 years before the flood came, people were subsisting on a plant-based diet primarily. Yeah? That's the record of Genesis. Why do I know that? Because it wasn't until after the flood, notice this, in a wonderful book that I so appreciate called Patriarchs and Prophets, it says something about this record. It says before this time, for the flood, God had given man no permission to eat animal food, right? He intended that the race should subsist wholly upon the productions of the earth. But now that every green thing had been destroyed, he allowed them to eat what? The flesh of clean animals. So, before the flood, there was no permission. After the flood, he gave them permission. And guess what happened? Here's the science. 10 generations after the flood. Notice how the years of life expectancy, longevity, it plummets. It drops precipitously from 900, average of 912 years, down to 75 years for Abraham. Now, so that's 400 years before the flood, and then in this clever way, it lays out 400 years after the flood. So now you have to look at it as a study because what is God doing? He's actually tracking the results or the effect of moving away from a plant-based diet. You follow that? And it's a total of 800 years. That's a long study. And a lot of people, so it's a very robust study, isn't it? Yeah. But there's more. So a study on longevity, that's what I like to call it, 10 generations before the flood, 10 generations after the flood. So that is moving from Daniel to the flood. And now, my favorite part, we're going to start looking at what's the purpose. But there you go. You see it right there. I like this actual art here, this graph. It shows you. They were supposed to be bigger people too. Yeah. Anyway, so 3 diets. 3 diets. How many diets? 3 diets in the Bible. 3 diets in Scripture. First one was the original diet. The second one is called the restoration diet. That's going to be the last day that I come with you. That's what I'm going to show you. Collards and kale, a love story, right? But I want you to see right now that there's the original diet, and we call the second diet when herbs were introduced into the diet. We call that the restoration diet for a reason. We'll cover that later. And then there's the emergency diet, and I just read that because of the flood, all vegetation had been destroyed. Therefore, they were allowed, given permission to eat the meat of clean animals. Have I told you what to eat yet? I haven't, right? Very good. Now, so let's go a little closer. Let's look at the purpose of a plant-based diet. What's the purpose? You know, all the science is coming out and they're saying, yeah, it's good. But what's the purpose? The first thing that I consider, this is what I consider. The first thing I considered was when God made Adam, he did something. He said, Adam, I've got a diet for you. This is what you're going to eat. Now, here is Hippocrates, who's known as the father of medicine. How many of you are familiar with what he said here? Let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food. By show of hands. Unless you have Dupuytren's contracture, you cannot lift your arms. How many of you are familiar with that statement? The question is, how many of you are familiar with what Hippocrates said regarding this? You familiar with it as well? All right, very good, very good. Now, are you familiar with this one? Natural forces within us are the true healers of diseases. Let me see your hands again. How many of you are familiar with that? Yeah, right. Now, when we look at the purpose, what we want to do is we want to bring those 2 ideas together. Food is your medicine, but what's inside of you does the healing. Okay, let me give that again. Food is your medicine, and your medicine really is food. But there's something inside of you that actually will do the healing. How is that possible? How does that work? It works by stimulation from food. If you stimulate those things in the body, it will actually allow the body to heal itself. Those are the right conditions. Does that make sense to you? I'm telling you, friends, oh boy, we could have the best health in the world if we just understood this. If we just understood this. So, let me show you a couple more slides, some signs, and I'm going to thank you and say, I'll see you next week. Is that all right? Here we go. And God said, see, I've given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seeds. To you it shall be for food. Now, I've highlighted that word given for a reason. This is the second reason I think is the purpose. I have given. That, I got to tell you, that word given really caught my attention. Because there's another time in the scriptures where the word given or give or gave is used. Very familiar to most people. John 3:16, it says, for God so loved the world that he did what? Oh, maybe a little more strength in your voice, maybe a little more power. I'm going to do it again. For God so loved the world that he gave. Why did he give again? He loved, so he gave. He loved, so he gave. Are you following this in the back there? He loved, so he gave. Now, what if we went back and we looked at this again? I have given you. If God is the same, he does the same thing, he has a pattern. If he gave us a diet, why did he give it to us? Because he loves us. He loves us. So when he made Adam of the dust of the ground, when he made Adam, he actually designed his body and he designed his food. The two concepts by Hippocrates. He designed the body. No, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. First, he designed a meal plan, and then he designed a body. I think that's significant. He designs a meal plan, and then he designs a body. Listen, because that's important, because God, according to what I've read, he seemed to have a lot of trust in Adam. There seemed to be a lot of trust. He said, Adam, come help me name the animals. Right? That's the elephant, Lord. Good, good. That's what I call it. Because God knew it already, right? There's nothing he didn't know. That's a giraffe. That's good, Adam. That's what I call it. That's a monkey. Yes. And you weren't made from that. I just threw that in there. Look, what I'm saying to you is that God was doing something. He was testing the mind of Adam. That's what I believe. Now, having said that, God trusted Adam to help him name the animals. He even trusted him to name his own wife. He made her, and then he says, Adam, you can name her. He wasn't all that creative. He just said wife, woman, right? That's going to be your name. Then after they had the fall, he got a little more creative, and he called her Eve, right? He trusted Adam to name the animals, name his wife, but he did not trust him to choose his own meal plan. Guess that? He said to Adam, this shall be your food. And let me tell you, there were cows around, chickens around, fish, plenty of water. There was lots of fish. But he didn't say you can have any of those. He just says, go to the tree, because I've just made a body that actually corresponds, or food that corresponds with the body, and the body corresponds with the food. Does that make sense? Because it is a love relationship that becomes one when exercised in the right way. Most people don't know this. We have lots of science, but what I believe the scriptures is teaching is that there's something else that's going on that's beyond our understanding. And science is just sort of searching in the dark. But the word is clear. Watch this. Let me continue to make my argument as we close here. So God formed Adam from the dust of the ground. What? He took him from the ground. May sound like fiction to some people, but he took him from the ground. Guess where he took the food from? You know, some people say you are what you eat. You know what I say? Eat what you are. You're made from the ground. And the very elements that are in the ground happen to be in the human body. So when you eat those things actually stimulate what's already in you. Now, look at this. How beautiful. You know, it was in 1953 that Francis and Crick came upon the DNA code. And we thought that we had the key to life. Oh, they were jumping and leaping and shouting and saying, we found it. People will never be sick again. We have unlocked DNA. We know the code. Here we are, many years later, and people still are sick. Because we're finding now from the science that the DNA is repaired or is strengthened by the right types of food. And the wrong kinds of food damages the DNA. So no matter how much more we learn about this wonderful, wonderful design written in our bodies, we still will be sick if we don't know what corresponds to it according to the original plant-based diet. Look at this. DNA from all the cells in your body pulled and straightened out is estimated to be 37.2 trillion cells. Lined up end to end, they were like 6 feet. But if you line them up, they would extend 42 billion miles long. The distance from the Earth to Pluto, 10 times. Oh yeah, that's a wow, isn't it? That's what's in you. When you start to think about that, you say, whoa, I'm more than just dust and dirt. Something that came out of a pond, right? There's something more that's going on here. They did an estimation of the number of cells in the human body back in 2013. Now, I highly recommend you take a picture of this, use your technology, write it down. I tell you, this is the key to your health right here. If you understand these 5 things, these 5 defense systems, health is not the absence of disease. Health is stimulating these 5 areas in your body. Health is stimulating at all times these things that respond to food. They are, number 1, angiogenesis. That's just the body's ability to produce new blood cells. You get a cut on your leg, you put a Band-Aid on it, you take it off to change it in a few hours, and you see this bright red. Already angiogenesis has kicked in, and it's coming to that area to bring blood for healing. That's love, isn't it? Doesn't want you to be walking around with the boo-boo all the time, right? Regeneration. Regeneration corresponds to the angiogenesis, and then stem cells that's just been hanging out in whatever that area is, hasn't decided what kind of cell it is, but then as soon as it sees that there's a scratch, it comes in and says, we're going to become whatever Philip needs. Philip working out in the garden, got a scar. Philip needs some tissue on his elbow. We will become scar tissue or tissue, skin tissue. Immunity. Immunity, you know what that is. I don't have to go into that. But there are foods that stimulate your immune system. There are foods that strengthen it, and there are foods that suppress it. Guess what kind of foods suppress it? Sugar. Sugar is really bad on the immune system. And now this new science, microbiome, studying gut bacteria. The things that I'm telling you, friends, sometimes we think we know everything, and we don't know anything. We're just scratching the surface. But all these things had a purpose in the beginning. You follow me? Like, for instance, I remember when we first had our first son, my wife and I. The doctor comes and he says, so you're going to get a C-section? We can schedule it. I said, are you kidding? Why? Well, you can schedule it. It's easy. You come in and all that hard work. I said, no, thank you. And at that time, there were lots of people saying, oh, yes, I'm getting a C-section. It's a C-section. You just go, and it's so convenient. Guess what they know now? That when that baby comes through the birth canal, it picks up the mother's good bacteria, and that actually strengthens its immune system. There's a purpose. There was a purpose for that way of having a child. Now, because we understand microbiome, the amazing clusters of good bacteria, of which we say we're something like 40 trillion more than cells. 40 trillion, and they're different types. And guess what? If you eat meat, you have a different type of gut bacteria than if you're on a plant-based diet. And if you switch, your body goes through a healing crisis, and you'll feel a little, why do I feel this way? But then once you get past it, your body's saying, whoa, thank you. We like this kind of gut bacteria, because watch what I'm going to show you about what happens when you eat meat. I haven't told you that you shouldn't. I'm just giving you the science, right? I don't want you all to be mad at me. I got to come back next week. They'll say, no, he came and he told us to put the chicken down, but I never said it. Remember, see, I've given you every herb, seeds, and so forth. Look at this. Watch this. This is amazing. I have given you seeds. That's what he said. Genesis 1:11. Eating one handful of nuts 5 or more days a week will extend your lifespan by at least 2 years. Did you know that? That's amazing. Now I'm talking about seeds, a handful, no honey almonds, no honey peanuts, no salt, no cinnamon, no caramel, just raw, unroasted nuts. They extend your life according to the science. A handful. I need to make this clear. A handful. Handful is, see, that's why I got to do this, because I know what people do. He just held up his hand. He said, that's a handful. And he piles all the nuts. It's a Good fat, but it's a fat nonetheless. Therefore, a handful is your fist closed, turned upside down. Anything that falls out, you don't eat. It's simple, easy to remember. Okay, got that? Handful, closed fist, turned upside down. That's all you need. That's according to the science. That's all you need. Now, it even goes a little further beyond this 2001 study. It says here, people who eat nuts and seeds tend to not only live longer, but also suffer fewer deaths from these specific lifestyle diseases: heart disease, cancer, and respiratory disease. I set them in that order because that's the order that we are most affected in this country. Heart disease is still number one, although it is being threatened by cancer to overtake it. Nuts and seeds. Now, I'm about to show you something that's going to blow you away about Brazil nuts. And if anybody here is on statin drugs are necessary for those who have high cholesterol, right? Statin drugs is something that, you know what, they have tremendous side effects, including affecting your memory. And we need our memories, don't we? Right. Well, guess what? There's no statin drug that outperforms Brazil nuts. Look at this study. 4 Brazil nuts lowers LDL, bad cholesterol, levels up to 20 points in just 9 hours. There's no statin drug that does that. So where, pray tell, are the Brazil nut commercials? No money in it. But notice what the punchline is, though. It brings them down 20 points in 9 hours, but between 1 and 8 nuts is all it took. Numbers stayed down even 1 month after. Why aren't we eating Brazil nuts? Every time I give this talk, people say, I'm going out to get my Brazil nuts. Go do it. You should only have 3, no more than 4 a day. 3, no more than 4. They're high in selenium, but if you eat too many of them, they become toxic in the tissue. So you only do 3 or 4. I know Christmas comes, and we end up, cracking hundreds of them. The place is a mess. Nuts and shells all over the couch. All you need is 3 or 4 per day. Got it? But that's against statin drugs. I have given you, I'm not going to talk too much about collards and kales and things like that. That is for our last presentation. But I got to just say something about broccoli. Oh, if I could just tell you about broccoli. Now, I'm not going to tell you everything because I tell you there's something beautiful about broccoli. It's something beautiful. But look at this. In a University of Chicago, Harvard University, and U.S. Institutes of Health study, they found that broccoli reduces cancer risk. All these cancers, look, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma by 40%, lung cancer by 28%, breast cancer by 17%, ovarian cancer by 33%, esophageal cancer by 31%, prostate cancer, 59%, men. 59%? Line that up against 1 egg per week, which increases your prostate cancer risk by 80%. Is there 1 egg per week? And who does that? Most people will have a 3-egg omelet. But the research shows that if you eat eggs, especially from the grocery store, then you are increasing your risk factor for prostate cancer by 80%. See? Maybe there was a purpose in the original diet, because I can't find love in something that causes me harm. Are you listening to me? I'm not telling you not to eat eggs. That's your business. I'm just telling you that there's no love in it, because love does no harm. Love sacrifices. Love heals. Love repairs. Love helps you to actually be stronger. It gives you strength. That's what love does. Love saves. Oh, if we could just see the love in our food. A couple more slides. I have given thee tomato. Look at this. There was a Harvard Health Professionals follow-up study. More than 30 studies on tomato effects on prostate. This was a large study, 46,000 men. 2 to 3 cups of tomato sauce. Now, by the way, the dominant bioactive or antioxidant in tomatoes is lycopene. That's what gives its red color. But for men, it's better when it's cooked. It actually intensifies the lycopene the chemical in it, right? So you want to actually have some tomato sauce. Look at this, 2 to 3 cups of tomato sauce per week, 30% decreased risk of prostate cancer. Anti-Angiogenic effect of lycopene on cancer. So it's kind of like a powerful, powerful thing that it not only reduces prostate cancer, but it then at the same time cuts off the blood supply if you actually have cancer. Not to the prostate, but to the tumor that's there on the prostate. What? Did you hear what I just said? It will kill the cancer, but then, it brings in good blood and nutrition, but then if there's a blood vessel that is actually supporting a tumor in the body, it actually stimulates the inhibitors to stop it from growing. Does that sound like love? Are you hearing the love? That's all. I tell you, I didn't come here to tell anybody what to eat, but I did come here to tell you that you should fall in love. Because the right food loves you. By the way, 2016 study on selected tomato breeding lines, cherry tomatoes, and I don't really like those. But after seeing the study, I said, you know what? More cherry tomatoes for me. Cherry tomatoes are actually the most potent of all the cherries. Of all the tomatoes. There is one in Italy that's better, but it's hard to get. So here, you can get the cherry tomatoes. 24% more lycopene than other types of tomatoes, except for that one in Italy. I've given thee kiwi. I like that one because it rhymes. I have given thee kiwi, right? What about kiwi? Rowett Research Institute in Scotland. Kiwi's ability to reduce DNA damage. See what I was talking about? You have and experience damage every single day. The research shows that there are 10,000 things every single day that's damaging your DNA. We cannot afford to be doing things that are constantly damaging. Just by going outside today and breathing, 10,000 things are damaging your DNA. So therefore, you need food in you that repairs it. That's the original diet. I can't find a meat source that does it. 14 healthy volunteers, not a large study, but nonetheless a powerful one in its outcomes. 1 to 2 or 3 kiwis per day. Reduction of DNA damage by 60%. They looked a little closer and they saw that it increased DNA activity of repair by 66%. That means that not only was it actually reducing the damage, but the amount of activity repairing also increased. Eat your kiwis. Quercetin. 2013 and 2017 studies. Angiogenesis champion. Stimulates and inhibits foods containing quercetin. And that means that's the same idea. That while it's bringing good nutrition to an area, it's also stopping disease at the same time. So it's kind of like a double barrel shotgun approach. That's in your body. So this is a antioxidant quercetin. It's found in a lot of things, including apples, red leaf lettuce, onions, cranberries, black plums. Now, I thought it was interesting that it was red leaf lettuce. We should eat more red leaf lettuce. Oh, can I just tell you something? I told you I always look for things that are gospel-centric. And what I found, and you're a farmer, you know this, the lettuce that is best to eat are the ones that open themselves up to the sun. Somebody heard what I just said. That open themselves up to the sun. They get more energy, they get more life, they get more power. And then guess what they do? Because they loved you so much, they transfer that love to you. All that power and all that source. Listen, I have never found, here's how I know that a plant-based diet is really good. I know it because if you go up to a cow, I live out in the country now, there's cattle all around. But if you go up to one of them with a knife, you try to eat it, it runs. You may not know that, but if you go up to a chicken, try to catch it, eat it, it runs. But if you go up to a tomato, it just says, "Take me, I'm yours." That's love. Isn't that love? That's love, brother. Just take me, I'm yours. I don't mind. We're going to become one anyway. That's love. The Bible tells us, the scripture tells us, I have given you, but this is what it says. I have not given you. I've not given you that because even these studies, just this one in France, this study in France, 67,000 women had a diet high in protein from meat, and it showed that it's pro-inflammatory across the board. Increased risk of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and other things. Pro-inflammatory means you walk around all day long inflamed. Inflammation is a precursor to cancer. Does that make sense to everybody? Then I just say thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope to see you next week. Thank you. I think he had some microphones here. If anybody want to add a question? Anybody have a question? Clear as mud? You have a question? No question. Oh, then it was clear. There's nothing better than someone explaining something that everyone's saying. That made sense. Oh, he has a question. Do you mind if I take maybe 3 to 5 questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Marcus, you okay with that? All right.
Hello. I've heard James Brown, the CBS sports guy, talk the last 3 years. And the second year, he referenced the 21-day Christian diet that he went on.
Mhm.
And would he be referring to the Daniel?
Yeah, that's what he's referring to.
Okay.
He's talking about the Daniel diet.
Okay.
That's the only diet that I know. In fact, it has become so popular. Some people like sort of co-opt that, and they refer to other diets as a 21-day fast. Master cleanse. That also is not so much plant-based, but it is actually cleansing the system using alkaline water along with maple syrup and cayenne pepper and lemon juice. It's a good cleanse for the system, but they'll do that in 21 days.
Second year, I heard him did not sweat while he was talking.
Oh yeah,
Basically, he just
that's the reason why. That's the reason why the diet will do that. I just there was a wonderful story here. There's a question over there as well. You see your hand right there. But there was a young lady who watched my television show From Sickness to Health. He stumbled upon it. She was 400 pounds. She was 400 pounds. She watched the show, and as I shared on that particular program about the laws of health, water, sunshine, fresh air, things like that, and exercise, and she just said, well, I never heard of it. I'll try it. 400 pounds. She lost 220 pounds. Yeah, she's doing good at 180 right now. She's thankful. And she says she wanted to know, well, where did this come from? And she looked for who I was, and she found out that I was coming from the Bible. And of course, she went and found a church that was teaching it. And of course, she joined that church. So anyway, you had a question right here.
Yes. I missed what was in the original diet. Are legumes in the original diet?
Everybody's been paying attention. They can tell you right here. Tell her what it is. They know it. They know it backwards and forward. Tell her what it is in that original diet. Yeah. Tell her. She needs. Show me you, because you said it was clear as mud. Tell her what's in it. Oh, well, that would be seeds, right? That comes in the seed category. Yep. What else? Fruit. There you go. You got 2. Okay. She's sitting there. Grains. So you got fruits, nuts, and fruit, seeds, and grains. And then they break it up into nuts. But nuts, seeds, grain, they're all seeds because they are life. If you put them, Philip will tell you this, you put them in water and soil, they're going to sprout. Right?
Can I ask one more question?
He's the boss right here. He's the MC.
Okay. Regarding grains, some people, like for example, the wheat belly diet, they recommend eliminating grains. And I was wanting to know what you thought about that, because they say that it's not really the original grains that we had in the Bible, and the grains are infested with like pesticides and GMOs.
Can't deny that. It's very true. China, if you're getting stuff from China, you're going to have a higher rate of pesticides and also arsenic is found in the rice and grains and things like that. Better to look at the countries that have less. I was in Europe recently, and I'm just amazed at how much better their food is than ours. So there are places that still have good food. Here, we really sell out for the dollar, and we'll let anything. Europe, They don't even let Monsanto in the place. So keep that in mind. That young man had a question back there. Yeah, you can find good ones in the health food stores. That's where I like to shop. And organic and non-GMO. So you can get them. So, I mean, I think he's a little extreme. He sold a book. But that's what gets the headline, right? Yeah.
What about mushrooms? Have there been any studies based on the nutrition of mushrooms?
Wow. That guy's got a really good question. How old are you, young man? 15. Wow. That's a powerful question. Let's see if I can give you a good answer. The answer to that is yes. If you were to look at what all the research that Dr. Joel Furman brings together, he has something called G-bombs, right? G-bombs, and the M in that bomb is for mushrooms. And he shows all the nutritional benefits of mushrooms. They are there. But here's my take. My take is he could also show the nutritional benefits of coffee. Did I tell anybody stop drinking coffee? Don't get mad at me. He could show you the benefits of coffee. Why? Because coffee comes from a bean, and beans are legumes, right? And legumes are high in antioxidants. So they isolate the antioxidant properties and therefore say all coffee is good. What they ignore is the fact that it is also highly acidic and that it has caffeine in it, right? Which is a stimulant. So that's the problem. So it's good and bad. The way I always like to say it is, God said you can eat from all of the trees in the garden because they're good. But don't eat from the one that's good and bad. So if it's good and bad, it's probably medicinal, but not necessarily a lifestyle thing you want to do all the time. Because why? It's a fungus. It's a fungus. And I just don't believe in eating fungus because a fungus plays a role, right? If a tree falls down in the forest and nobody's around, if a tree falls down in the forest and it starts to decompose, what starts to grow on it? Mushrooms. Why do they grow on it? To return it to the soil. Their job is to eat it up and put it back into the soil. So that's my take on, that's from what I've studied. You know, people could have different takes on that, so I'm not criticizing anyone who loves a good shiitake and portobello. If you love those, I mean, that's your business. You know, you eat them, but I'm just letting you know that's my take. So no condemnation or judgment on anyone who loves a good portobello mushroom steak sandwich. You guys have been fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.